Let me ask you something. Have you ever stood at a crossroads in your life, heart racing, stomach tight, knowing that you had to make a decision, but you were completely stuck? You knew what your gut was telling you to do, but your head wouldn't shut up. I've been there, and I'll tell you right now, the hardest decisions you'll ever make won't come down to logic. They'll come down to trusting yourself. And if you don't learn how to do that, you'll spend your life outsourcing your power, waiting, doubting, hesitating, asking everyone else for permission. This talk, it's going to show you exactly how to break out of that cycle. By the end, you'll know how to finally trust your gut. Even when the stakes are high, the pressure is real, and the fear is screaming louder than your instinct. Because here's the truth. The most successful, fulfilled, unstoppable people you know. They've learned to trust that whisper inside, and you can too, so stay with me. Don't just listen, apply this, because the next time life hands you a hard decision, you won't freeze, you'll move fast. With clarity, with confidence, and with no apologies. Let's go. Your gut isn't random. It's not some magical, mystical voice whispering in the dark. It's wisdom. Pure, powerful, personal wisdom that comes from everything you've seen, lived, failed at, succeeded in, and endured. It's your lived experience boiled down into a split-second signal, and yet we've been taught to ignore it, to suppress it, to run everything through a spreadsheet or wait for permission or a sign or a guarantee before making a move. That's why so many people stay stuck, because we've become experts at overthinking and amateurs at trusting ourselves. Let's break something down. Your brain is constantly collecting data, even when you're not aware of it. Every interaction, every observation, every time you notice someone's tone shift or the way your body reacts to stress, your subconscious mind logs all of it, and that's where your gut lives. It's not in your stomach. It's in that deep, fast-acting part of your brain that processes information without needing to explain it to your logical mind. So when you get that feeling, something doesn't feel right, or something feels exciting, or you just know you need to take that job or leave that relationship, that's not a guess. That's your brain lighting up with a pattern it recognizes. It's a signal that you know something, even if you can't explain it yet. But here's the problem. We're addicted to certainty. We want to know before we leap. We want proof it'll work. We want the outcome in advance. And your gut, it doesn't give you a guarantee. It gives you a direction. And if you don't trust that signal, you'll drown it in doubt. You'll silence it with logic. You'll call 3 friends, Google it, make a pros and cons list, and you'll feel busy. But you won't feel clear. Because clarity doesn't come from overthinking, it comes from alignment, and alignment lives in your gut. You already know the difference between a yes and a no in your body. When you walk into a room and something feels off, that's not an accident. When you meet someone and they make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, that's your system picking up on cues faster than your brain can process. But instead of listening to that, we dismiss it. We call it nerves. We say we're just being dramatic. We let logic override instinct, and later, when things fall apart, we say, I knew it. I should have trusted myself. Here's the wild part. You did know. But you didn't trust, and that's the real work. Learning to trust what you already know deep down. Learning to move with that knowing even when the outcome isn't certain. Because your gut isn't about predicting the future. It's about honoring your truth in the moment. When you're facing a hard decision and everything feels messy and unclear, your gut is often the only part of you that isn't confused. It's the quiet voice saying, this isn't it, or you need to go for it. And when you stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and over-analyzing, that voice gets louder. You're not confused because you don't know what to do. You're confused because you're afraid of what happens when you do it. That's the real tension, and the more you practice listening to your gut, the better you get at decoding it. You start noticing how your body reacts to certain people, decisions, environments. You build a relationship with your inner knowing, and eventually you stop outsourcing your choices. You stop delaying. You start owning your life, one gut decision at a time. Tripped up. You get that tight feeling in your chest or a flutter in your stomach and immediately assume this must be wrong. You back away. You stall. You tell yourself, I'm just being careful. But what you're really doing is confusing the signal, because fear and intuition both show up as physical sensations, but they come from completely different places. Fear is rooted in protection. It's your brain's way of keeping you safe, small, and in the comfort zone. It's triggered by uncertainty, by risk, by anything unfamiliar. But intuition is the opposite. It's rooted in truth. It's that deep, calm clarity that lives beneath the noise. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't paralyze you, it nudges you. The reason this is so important when you're making a hard decision is because fear is always going to show up when something matters. You think that fear is a stop sign, but it's often just a signpost that you're doing something that stretches you, something that could change things. So how do you know which voice to trust when you're standing at that edge, heart pounding, and your whole body is lit up with adrenaline? You slow down, you pause, you ask, is this fear talking, or is this my gut trying to guide me? Because here's the key: fear is loud, chaotic, and dramatic. It gives you worst case scenarios, spirals you into overthinking, and tells you to wait for the perfect time. Intuition doesn't operate like that. It's calm, it's steady, it doesn't argue with you, it simply knows. If you've ever had a moment where something didn't feel right, maybe a person, an opportunity, or a direction, and later you saw clearly that you were right, that was your intuition at work. And the reason you knew it back then, but didn't act on it, is probably because fear won. You were afraid of making the wrong choice, so you ignored the one thing that was quietly telling you the truth. This happens all the time, especially in high-stakes moments, when you're trying to decide whether to leave the job, end the relationship, move to a new city, launch the idea, make the leap. Your gut says you know what to do, but your fear says, what if you fail? And because fear is louder, you let it lead. But here's what nobody tells you. Just because something scares you doesn't mean it's wrong. And just because something feels safe doesn't mean it's right. That's why being able to separate the voice of fear from the voice of intuition is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It starts by paying attention to how the decision feels after the initial emotion passes. Intuition isn't reactive, fear is. Intuition feels like peace, even when the decision is hard. Fear feels like chaos, even when the option looks good on paper. That's the difference. One comes from alignment, the other from anxiety. And the more you practice noticing the tone, the pace, the energy of the thoughts in your mind, the easier it gets to sort them. You'll start catching fear in the act. You'll realize, oh, that's not my gut. That's just me trying to avoid discomfort. And when you spot it, you can choose differently. You're never going to get rid of fear. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop mistaking it for wisdom, to stop letting it vote when the decision is about who you want to become. Because intuition doesn't care about your comfort zone. It cares about your potential. It doesn't avoid risk. It walks straight through it when the path aligns with your truth. And once you start listening to that voice, really listening, you'll realize it's been speaking to you all along. You were just too busy believing fear was the smarter one in the room. There's a window, a tiny one, that opens up the moment you feel the pull to act. It lasts maybe 5 seconds. That's it. 5 seconds before your brain starts doing what it's designed to do, protect you. And not in the way you think. Your brain isn't interested in your growth. It's interested in your survival. So the moment it senses change, risk, or uncertainty, it goes to work talking you out of it. That's why when you get a great idea, call that person, apply for that job, speak up, walk away, start the thing, you get about 5 seconds before the excuses flood in, and most people, they don't make it past the 5. They think too long and the moment passes. The the courage disappears, the doubt takes over. But here's the truth, that 5-second window is everything. It's the space between knowing what you need to do and actually doing it. It's the battleground where hard decisions are either made or avoided. We all wait for clarity, for certainty, for confidence, but those things don't show up until you act. Confidence is a result of doing, not thinking. So, if you're sitting around trying to think your way into the perfect decision, you're going to wait forever. Action is what creates clarity, and that's why the 5-second window is so powerful. It forces you to move before your mind has the chance to sabotage you. Because that moment, that split second, is when you still have access to your gut instinct. You haven't buried it under fear yet. You haven't given your inner critic the microphone. You're still in that raw, honest place where you know what needs to happen. But if you don't act quickly, you'll lose it. The brain will flood in with doubt, distractions, and delay tactics. It'll tell you to wait, to get more information, to be responsible. But responsible doesn't always mean align. Sometimes it's just fear in disguise. People think making hard decisions takes months. Sometimes it does, but most of the time, the actual decision takes seconds. The rest is just wrestling with the consequences. You already know what you want to do. You just haven't given yourself permission to do it. And that's what the 5-second window is about. It's a tool to override the mental noise and drop into your truth before it gets clouded. That phone call you know you need to make. Start dialing before your brain talks you out of it. That boundary you need to set. Speak the first word before you retreat into silence. That idea you've been sitting on for months. Take the first small step right now before you overthink it to death. Most people think courage is this massive force, but it's not. It's a muscle, and it gets stronger every time you act before fear has a chance to take over. Every time you move in that 5-second window, you teach your brain that you're in charge, not your fear, not your comfort zone, you. And once you build that pattern, feel the gut instinct count down from 5 and move, you stop waiting to feel ready. You stop living in limbo. You start becoming the kind of person who doesn't hesitate when life hands you a choice. It's not that hard decisions suddenly become easy. They don't, but you get faster at making them. You stop dragging them out and creating extra pain through indecision. Because the truth is, sitting in that I don't know place is often more exhausting than the decision itself. Your energy leaks out in all the overthinking, in all the mental gymnastics, in all the stories you spin while avoiding the obvious. But when you act inside that 5-second window, you skip the spiral. You move into momentum, and once you've moved, everything changes. The decision is no longer theoretical. It's real. You're in it. And from there, you build clarity and confidence one step at a time. We're obsessed with finding the right decision, like there's one golden path that will guarantee happiness, success, or validation. That pressure can paralyze you. You start thinking if you don't pick perfectly, you'll ruin everything. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Hard choices are not about the outcome. They're about alignment. When you make a decision from a place that aligns with who you are, what you value, and the kind of life you want to build, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's risky, it will feel right. Not easy, but right. We waste so much energy trying to predict how things will play out, but outcomes are outside your control. Alignment isn't, and that's the only thing that really matters when you're making a hard call. The truth is, you can make a wrong choice on paper and still end up exactly where you need to be, simply because you acted in alignment with your truth. When you're trying to choose between two jobs, or whether to end a relationship, or whether to move or pivot your business, you start calculating every possible future. What will people think? What if it doesn't work? What if I regret it? You build a case in your mind like you're a lawyer. stacking evidence for and against, hoping it will bring clarity. But clarity doesn't come from logic alone. It comes from integrity. It comes from knowing that the choice you're making reflects what matters to you right now. That doesn't mean it will be forever. That doesn't mean it will be perfect, but it will be real, and that's the kind of decision you can live with, no matter what happens next. People confuse difficulty with wrongness. Just because a choice is painful doesn't mean it's misaligned. In fact, some of the most aligned choices are the hardest. Leaving something you've outgrown, saying no to something everyone else wants you to say yes to. Walking into uncertainty when comfort is begging you to stay put. These are hard not because they're wrong, but because they demand a new version of you. They ask for your courage. They ask for your honesty. That's why alignment is the only compass that works when the map is unclear, because it keeps you grounded when nothing else makes sense. You don't need a perfect answer. You need an honest one. What's actually true for you? What's eating away at you when you're quiet? What's the decision that, deep down, you already know you need to make but haven't given yourself permission to follow through on? That's the place where alignment lives, and no one else can define it for you. That's why advice, feedback, and external opinions are helpful only up to a point. Eventually, you have to be the one to choose, because you're the one who has to live with it. The reason this matters so much is because decisions made out of alignment always catch up with you. You can't fake your way through your own life. You can't keep choosing what looks good to others but feels wrong to you. That disconnect will cost you energy, peace, motivation, and eventually self-respect. But when you choose in alignment, something powerful happens. Even when the outcome is uncertain, you feel grounded. You feel clear. You can handle the bumps because you know you didn't abandon yourself. You honored your gut. You made the hard call, and that's something to be proud of, no matter how it unfolds. Alignment gives you strength, not because the path is easy, but because it's yours. It's not borrowed. It's not forced. It's not based on fear. It's based on truth. And that's the kind of decision that changes everything. We all say we want answers, but what we really crave is certainty. And that craving is exactly what keeps so many people stuck in indecision. Because when you're waiting for certainty, you're handing over your power to something that doesn't exist. There is no perfect decision. There is no future version of you that gets to skip over doubt, fear, or discomfort. Life doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with risks, choices, and the courage to step into the unknown without knowing exactly how it'll turn out. That's what makes a decision hard. It's not just the decision itself, it's the pressure we put on ourselves to get it right. But that pressure is based on a lie, the idea that there is one correct path, and that if you choose wrong, you've failed. That lie is paralyzing. It convinces you that waiting longer, gathering more opinions, or analyzing it to death will somehow make it easier. It won't. There comes a point where the search for more information becomes a distraction from action. You tell yourself you're being responsible, that you're not ready, that you need more signs, but deep down you already know, you already feel it, that tension in your chest, that uneasiness, that quiet voice that says this isn't it, or it's time to go, that's your answer. But instead of trusting it, you bury it. You bury it under logic, under fear, under other people's expectations. And while you're busy waiting for certainty, your opportunity starts slipping away, because clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You gain clarity when you move, when you make the call, when you take the risk. That's when you see what's true, what works, what doesn't. But you can't think your way into clarity. You have to live your way into it. We're raised to believe that smart people don't rush into things, that thoughtful people take their time. And yes, reflection matters, but overthinking is not reflection. It's avoidance. It's fear wearing the mask of logic, and the longer you stay in that loop, the harder it gets to move, because now the decision is tangled up in your identity. Now you're afraid not just of the outcome, but of what it says about you if it goes wrong. That's the trap. We start to believe that making a wrong decision means something about who we are. It doesn't. It just means you're human. There is no growth without mistakes. There is no success without risk. And there is no alignment without uncertainty. You can't build a meaningful life while chasing guarantees. You have to choose based on what feels aligned, what feels true, even when there are no promises. That's the only way forward, and here's the truth most people won't tell you. Even if you make the wrong decision, you'll be okay. You'll learn, you'll adjust, you'll grow. We've all made decisions we regretted, and we survived. In fact, we became stronger because of them. So the real fear isn't making a mistake. The real fear is wasting your life not choosing at all, staying in places that drain you, jobs that numb you, relationships that shrink you, because you're afraid of choosing differently and being wrong. But here's the shift. What if the decision isn't about right or wrong? What if it's about momentum? What if the only way to get to the right place is to start moving, to make a choice, and trust yourself to figure it out as you go? That's what life actually is. It's not a puzzle with one perfect solution. It's a process, and you shape it with every decision you make. Not with certainty, but with courage. So if you're waiting for everything to line up before you act, you'll wait forever. The people who create lives they're proud of aren't the ones who had all the answers. They're the ones who made the leap without them. You already know. That's the part no one tells you when you're spinning in circles trying to make a decision. Deep down, beneath all the noise, the second, guessing, the list, making, and the desperate Googling for answers, you already know that knowing isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it shows up as a quiet resistance, a pit in your stomach every time you think about staying, a strange calm when you imagine walking away, a subtle energy shift that happens when you speak the truth out loud, even just to yourself. That's your gut. That's your inner compass, and it's not some mystical, unreachable thing. It's built into you. But most of us are trained to override it. We're told to be logical, to follow the data, to make the smart choice. So we get really good at gathering opinions, making spreadsheets, drawing up pros and cons lists, and asking everyone else what they think we should do. But in all that external noise, we drown out our own voice, the one that matters most. It's not that you don't know what to do, it's that you're scared of what it means if you admit it, because knowing means you're responsible. Knowing means you don't get to hide behind confusion anymore. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. It's easier to say, I'm just not sure, than to say, I'm afraid to act on what I already know. But here's the thing, pretending not to know won't protect you. It just keeps you stuck. It keeps you locked in cycles of doubt, stress, and indecision that drain your energy and steal your peace. You can lie to everyone else about how conflicted you are, but you can't lie to yourself forever. Your body knows, your gut knows, your spirit knows. That's why even when everything looks fine on the surface, you still feel restless. You still feel that quiet ache, that nudge that something's not right or something's being avoided. And the moment you admit the truth to yourself, everything shifts. It doesn't mean the decision becomes easy, but it becomes clear. That clarity, it changes the game, because once you stop fighting your own knowing, you stop leaking energy into confusion. You stop building stories that keep you small, and that's when you start getting honest about what you want, what you're willing to risk, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. The truth might scare you. It might ask you to change things, to end things, to start over, but it won't leave you alone, because once you know, you can't unknow. You can delay, you can deny, but that truth will sit in your chest and whisper until you finally listen. So if you're sitting in a place of indecision, ask yourself, if no one else's opinion mattered, if failure wasn't a threat, if I could trust myself completely, what would I do? That's usually your answer. Not the safe answer, not the popular one, but the right one for you. And when you give yourself permission to follow that, everything changes, not because it suddenly becomes easy, but because you're no longer fighting against yourself. That inner conflict that goes quiet, that heavy weight you've been carrying, it lifts, not because the decision is done, but because the denial is done. The pretending is done. You can finally move. You can finally breathe. You can finally act in alignment with who you really are. Hard decisions are not made with perfect information or perfect confidence. They are made with honesty, with the courage to stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What do I already know but haven't admitted yet?" That question is a key, and the answer, it's not out there in the world waiting to be found. It's already in you, waiting to be heard. So here's the bottom line. Every hard decision you're avoiding isn't really about what's right or safe or perfect. It's about whether or not you're willing to trust yourself. Not the version of you that's performing for others, not the version trying to predict every possible outcome, but the real you, the one who already knows, the one who whispers when the world shouts, that voice. That's your gut, and it's been speaking to you this whole time. The truth is, your gut won't always lead you down the easiest road, but it will lead you down the most honest one. And that's the road where growth happens, where freedom lives, and where you finally stop living your life on pause. You don't need more time, you need more trust in yourself, in your instincts, and in your ability to handle whatever happens next. You don't need certainty to move, you need courage, because clarity isn't waiting at the end of the decision. It's waiting for you the moment you make it. So count down from 5, trust that inner knowing, and leap. You're not here to play it small. You're here to live fully, boldly, and in alignment with who you are. The decision is yours. It always has been. Now it's time to trust your gut and make it